Hi, Verity.
Hello.
It's so nice to see you.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining. We are going to give a few minutes, few seconds, I should say. We're short with 15 minutes. You got to be moving quickly.
That's
Um,
right.
but we're having people pop in the room now. Um, and then we can go ahead and get started. I'll get my timer set so we don't go over.
Great.
All right. Well, I'm Lacey Schrum. I'm the founder of SmartKX, and I am so excited to have Verity Larsen from Verisoft Consulting here today. And we really hit it off talking about data, moving data, transitioning data, and all the work that really entails behind the scenes. So today we're talking about our title is After the Marriage, Before the Payout, where these transitions go sour. So, welcome, Verity, and would love for you to tell us a little bit about your firm and what you do.
Thank you. Well, yeah, it's great to be here. So we uh, we are a vendor agnostic consulting company that focuses on um, a lot on operational improvements through the use of technology. But besides just kind of general technology consulting services, we do a lot of business process reviews to recommend and improve improvements to current operations. We help RIAs with the selection of different vendor platforms, just simply recommending the right technology for each firm. And that includes going through the whole RFI and RFP process. We do a lot with historical transaction and performance data conversions, moving data from one platform to another. So, certainly, that's a lot of what we'll talk about today. But then also, lots of help with implementations, acting as an extension of our clients, providing project management services. And we also have in-house US-based development team that helps build custom applications, integration, and lots of automation.
Cool. So, you have a high level view of all things data,
Yes.
starting when you're starting to build it, when it's in there and it needs moved, and then also handling it if other systems don't have the tools that you necessarily need. So awesome.
Definitely.
So one of the things that we really connected on was this idea, you mentioned it, of performance migrations. So if there's transitions and we need data moved from one spot to another, um, moving that actual performance data for those firms. And of course, that caught my attention because we deal with fee data, which can be very similar, that it gets very messy and tangled up very quick in the calculations. And then we talked a lot about what that means in a transition. So, which is what got us to where we are today in the middle of we have a deal that's gone through. You are moving the data from one point to another. And this is sort of like a black box, I think, to a lot of people of where the data, how it's handled and moved. So can you give us a little insight? I think everybody wants to know, like, where does it go wrong? Like, what are some high level things? Like, where can it really get messy?
Yeah. Well, I think what's important is people are not doing their due diligence in advance, and that's when it gets messy, right? Understanding what's going on here in these types of conversions, and of course, an M&A opportunity, firms getting acquired, to do your due diligence in advance, where you are analyzing the current state of your environment, understanding the accuracy of that data, because really accuracy and I'd also say access is key. So, I think where it really starts is doing your due diligence in advance to this consolidation or this merge that has to happen. And things that you can do are like talking to your vendors or even your technology staff understanding what's required to access the data or to extract the data, and certainly start reviewing your data. Um, for example, like if you're tracking alternative investments, you know, have you been using your system correctly? Are you booking those transactions correctly? If you have closed accounts or closed relationships, have you been properly updating your system? Um, which of course all of this then also feeds into the calculation and the reporting of your data. So is it actually currently being reported correctly, which ultimately leads into the conversion of accurate data too. So, just really doing your due diligence to review your current data and your current environment is really critical because then when it comes to the conversion of that data, it's not just a plug and play process. We can't just go in, pull out all the performance interval returns and throw those into the new system and just expect it to magically be perfect. That is just not how this goes. There's always there's gaps, there's missing information, account numbers are not lining up between systems, they're in the case of, certainly you get involved in fees. There's always this analysis of contracts. So the investment advisory agreements you have with your clients, to, fee schedules, knowing where all that paperwork resides, like all of these things are, I guess, information points that are necessary to ensure that that conversion work goes as smooth as possible.
And so when I hear due diligence on the deal side, I think from a legal standpoint, look at client agreements, look at vendor agreements, look at potential litigation, things like that. And you're really advocating that this also includes more from the ops side of
Yes.
reviewing who is doing what and like is that what sort of grade we should give that data to kind of anticipate our work. How who is doing that? Like what side of the deal is doing that? Are they doing it before the valuation or are they doing it after an LOI? Like what side of the party and then really like boots on the ground who's doing it?
Good questions. And the answer to both those questions is both parties.
Mm,
So
okay.
this really does start with efforts even before an LOI is signed. Like if you are even doing your, strategic planning, you're doing succession planning, whatever it is, and there's consideration that you're shopping around and looking, to sell. You should be doing this analysis in-house, really to, kind of get your house in order.
Mhm.
Because honestly, it will make you will be, considered more intriguing, more interesting. Buyers will actually appreciate that you've done that analysis in advance, to get your house in order. But then it also does happen during the LOI stage. And certainly that's when the seller, or sorry, the buyer is going to come
Mhm.
in and want to do a little bit more in-depth review to see what current state is and understand that that can also affect the sale price. If things are really a mess, it can actually lower your valuation, because it's going to be a lot more work to do the merge. But then in addition to that, once the deal is closed, this work is going to be by all parties, and it's going to be a lot of work. This is not just a flip of the switch and everybody's onto a new system and it's an easy transition. That's not how this happens.
Yeah.
So be prepared, for both teams, both sides, buyer and seller, that this is a significant investment in effort, from an operational and even the advisor's side. There's going to be a lot of time being spent, to make this as a successful consolidation. but realize that this is also effort that needs to be done in order to retain your clients. Last thing you want to do is lose clients because of this consolidation. And so, some just as smooth as you can make it will also be felt by the end client as well.
Yes, and I assume that there's different parties to a transaction. So obviously the people making the decisions, the deal makers, the signers on the paper, there's the advisors, there's the ops team. And we sort of talked about this, a business I love is Southwest, and they always say, like, take care of your employees and they'll take care of your clients. And something you had mentioned was that when this data is messy, when you get into after the deal's been closed and we're migrating, that's when the pull on clients can really be felt, because your team, as you just said, your ops and your advisors, the people who are dealing with clients on a day to day and making sure they have what they need, are being pulled in a different direction.
Definitely. Yep. And I want to add a comment here. So many people, like I said, think that it's just a switch of, the systems and it just miraculously is done. This is never an easy process, nor is it fast. I would say on average, you're looking at the consolidation, this merge, to take about 6 months. And, ideally, that can be a really smooth transition if you're well prepared for it, or it can be really rocky and a horrible experience and lots of long days and late hours and weekends and it can just get really bad. So
As,
like which do
as,
you want it to be, you know?
especially when you're dealing with numbers going to clients regarding the amount they're paying you or the performance of their assets. Like
Right.
those are two numbers you don't want
Can't
to mess
mess
up.
up. You
No,
cannot mess up. No.
no. So what can advisors do right now? So we have a few weeks till the end of the year. Like what could they do what's to get the biggest ROI on their data? They may or may not be thinking about transitioning, starting their own firm, just want a higher valuation, want to invest a little bit of time. Like what are some things that they could do to ease this burden should they decide to go down that road? Or even elevate themselves in a valuation standpoint.
Yeah. I think it really does get back to like verify, you know, talk to your vendors, understand, what access you have to your data. How can you extract your data? Is it something where you can simply put in a request to the vendor and they can, give you an export in like a database or in text files? Is it something where you have to go about that effort manually through the front end of the system? Um, Start, like I said before, like looking at open versus closed accounts, review your relationships, make sure that, the groups are accurate. If you're
Hmm.
grouping clients by, you have billing groups, you have trading groups, you have reporting groups, making sure that there's accurate information there. Um, and then of course uh, just make sure that you are confident in the information that you are currently reporting to your clients. So certainly those performance returns, if there's any hesitation that you have over the accuracy of that, start researching that now. Because you just can't wait on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we always say, like, clean up your old clients, clean up the ones that are leaving, these old, like, scraggly accounts that you're not managing anymore, or just kind of, I mean, it's a boring task, but like, it's just like bookwork. Like, you have to get it done.
Yes, for sure. Yep.
Anything else that you would like our listeners to know?
Probably the last thing is if you are considering an acquisition, if you are on the seller side, or sorry, yeah, on the seller side, make sure that you understand the terms of the agreement with your acquiring firm. I don't, of course, need to say this. I mean, people pretty much know, but when it comes to your data, understand what they're going to be doing with it. Are they going to be archiving it? Are they going to be converting and consolidating it into the new platform? Are they doing historical transactions or is it just going to be performance intervals? if it's going to be either of those two, how many years of history gets converted. Some firms are only doing 3 years of history, some only do one, some will do back to inception, but really know what you're getting into, because that's also another kind of gotcha. I think that a lot of sellers realize after the deal is closed, all of a sudden they realize, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have my 15 or 20 years of data in my system
Mm.
anymore. And that's a big surprise. So know what you're going to be getting before you sign that deal.
And what you're giving up.
And
If
what you,
you've been showing
yes,
your clients 20 years of performance and then all of a sudden you can only show 3, you can handle that, but you need to know before you print off a performance document 10 minutes
absolutely.
before the
So you can
meeting.
also proper messaging to your clients, right? Setting
Yes.
expectations. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. So I've put, I'm going to skip here. We're Smart KX. We do everything that we've been talking about performance. We do those same things for fees. So we're rolling out some dashboards over the next 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks that talk about exactly what we've been covering in these webinars, which are metrics, knowing your business, knowing how to shift from a practice to a business, things that are also useful as we're seeing firms open up their own shop or transition, understanding their billing rate, how much they're charging clients, are their contracts in good order, so they can get the highest valuation, whatever they're using it for. So we have 2 more webinars coming up. This is the contact information for Smart KX and our guest, Verity, and she's at Verisoft Consulting. They have really great social media presence as well. They just did an awesome music video, which I was so envious of. So check them out both online and on LinkedIn. And thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you have a great holiday season. And thanks everyone for participating.